Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another exciting edition of Cambridge Inside Out, our last one of the year.
That's right. This is Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
Yeah.
Love him or hate him, but that's my name.
Well, we all love you. Yeah. So yeah, it's the last. Oh my God, 2021 like flew by.
20 and 20.
They both flew by. Yeah.
I mean, as everybody knows, I follow a lot of city council business, and it's like the 2020 2021 city council term is like I don't see any way that it can be remembered as anything other than the pandemic council.
It's all Zoom, and
it's doing things in their hardship. And as I like to say, is some relative obscurity. I mean, the Zoom, the access to Zoom certainly allowed people to,
more public
chime
comment,
in.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
which is not a bad thing. Although when you have 3,000 people coming from all over the world,
there is a fundamental one-way problem with Zoom, though, and as public process. In actual public meetings, you can actually give a little signal to somebody. You can talk to somebody on the side. There's a little back and forth here and there. Even the participants in public comment will talk to each other, which helps develop their perspectives. And even people of opposing sides will talk to each other.
But how many people really? Well, actually, I do remember packed meetings there. But I think people are used to this, and it's easier. You don't have to find a parking space if you drive.
I mean, for matters that are not of great consequence, I think it's great. But when you have things that are highly detailed and potentially very controversial and whatever, I just think it falls very short of any kind of rational, reasonable public process.
Also, there's a lot of things that you don't get to see. Some of the stuff you get to see on the screen, but unless a lot of the stuff.
Well, I mean,
which usually is in that big book, which I don't want them to take all that out. But
I'll give credit to the city clerk's office for doing their best under trying circumstances. But it is really hard when somebody's going to be introducing it or to go, I'm putting it on the screen, and there's nothing there, and then counselors are talking about things, and you go, what are they talking about? I have no idea. And then they vote on it. And you go, well, I guess we'll find out tomorrow what they voted on.
They're getting better at that, but
I think they're getting better in some ways.
Hard,
and they still haven't perfected the Zoom. I was listening to at least two people in public comment last night who just could not get past the echo.
Oh, I know. And then she finally said, just speak.
The mayor said,
they didn't know how to turn off the other device. Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it is. I mean, the time spent. And also with the roll call vote, now when it was in person, did they just raise their hand or what? How did that happen?
You could actually do a voice vote, so you didn't even have to necessarily take roll call
there you
votes.
Go.
State law says
even
before the pandemic, they established rules, and if somebody couldn't be at a meeting, an elected official, then that required all votes to be roll call votes.
Oh, because they were calling in.
Yeah, but if everybody was present, then it didn't have to be a roll call. So sometimes they would, they say, all those opposed, all the other folks say aye.
I miss that because it just saved time.
It saved a lot of time, and for considering the fact that almost all votes are 9-0 anyway, it's sort of ridiculous to sort of go through that process.
But it's process; they have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so this was the last of the city council meetings of the year. There was a committee meeting. I think one was today, and there was another one tomorrow.
Yes.
And that'll be the close of the regular business for our 2020-2021 city council term. Right. And we'll see what happens. I mean, last night there were 3 resolutions in particular that were as part of the meeting. One was congratulations to Monica Bowman, who's leaving the school committee.
She's leaving the school committee.
Another one was for Jivan Sabrina Wheeler. Congratulations on serving for, and thank you for serving your term. But really, without question, the big one was Tim Toomey, who's basically been on the city council
32 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was first elected to the school committee. Actually, people forget this, but in 1985, he was not elected to the school committee. Joe Maynard was, but Joe Maynard died before the inauguration. And then they did the little mini count on that. And Tim actually told me the story one time about how he found out. It was really kind of very
interesting.
unexpected. Yeah.
So then he got elected to that.
Yeah. So then he joined as the replacement for Joe Maynard, and then he was elected forevermore. In 1989, I believe he ran for.
He said it was 32 years.
Yeah. So that's when he first ran for city council. And after some years in the 90s, he also was simultaneously a state representative.
25 years, 26
Yeah.
years.
So he was sort of the ultimate public servant,
Was he, wait a minute, can I ask you something? Was Sandra Graham on the council as a rep also when he was? So there were two of our councilors were also reps?
I think they may have been on simultaneously. Actually, I'm pretty sure. But they were different districts, and
well, I know that, but I'm just curious whether two could have served.
Yeah, I think Sandra was off the council by the time Tim ran for state rep seat. Yeah,
25 years. Okay,
yeah, I'd have to check.
I'll have to look it up.
It's not an outrageous thing. There have been Boston city councilors who also were state representatives.
Yeah, but that's when the job probably wasn't so demanding, and so
I'm not
like a full-time job. I don't know.
They define it however they choose to define the jobs, but I don't really view either of those jobs necessarily as having to be full-time positions. And I've always felt
one should be, but
I don't know about that. I mean,
maybe it's the other way around. I don't know.
We don't need somebody who's a hard 40-hour-a-week laborer so much as somebody who has really good judgment. And those two are not necessarily correlated.
No, but I think as a representative of a community or of a district, you have to attend things in your district. You need to network, and so that takes up time. So it's not necessarily 9 to 5 time. So I don't know.
Right. I will agree that it would be difficult to hold a full-time job and also be an elected official. So, but there are many jobs.
We have those. People do it.
Yeah, but there are many jobs that don't necessarily have to do. I mean, Denise Simmons, for most of her time as a city councilor, had run an insurance company.
Yeah.
Right. But there are also other people who work there. So it's not like she has to be there 40 hours a week.
Right.
Right. And other people are lawyers, architects, and social workers, and you name it.
Mark is kind of amazing,
lawyers.
Because he's got kids and whatever.
Yeah,
whatever. All right. Well, let's not go that direction. Let's just talk about Tim Toomey and his nice send off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just mention, because the other big piece of news has to do with the alarming increase in COVID rates. But I wasn't necessarily going to go up to the council meeting last night for Tim's send off. Normally I would, but because of all the circumstances, I might not have.
Shot,
but I was over at the Galleria last night getting at 4:10 to get my booster. So I'm a threefer now.
Me too.
And I ran into Deputy City Clerk, and Paula Crane, and she said, "You going to Timmy's thing tonight?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's tonight." "Oh yeah." And so with that, I said, "Yeah, I think I'll go."
Yeah.
And I did, and I didn't stay for much longer than the beginning, because a lot of his family relations were there, and they didn't want them to just sort of hang out through a bunch of public comment, because there were a lot of people speaking about the bike lanes and everything else.
63 people signed up for public comment.
Yeah, so they took care of the ceremonial stuff with Tim early, and I thought that was very thoughtful. And it was nice. I really like going to these things. I've been there for the send-offs for quite a few people over the years. So it was great. Actually, I'm glad I went. So and by the way, we get back to some of that. I think we do need to say a word or two about the alarming COVID numbers.
Oh, please.
And and I'm of mixed mind about this to some degree, because I'm looking at two numbers, right? And I'll actually maybe what I'll do is I'll sort of switch over there now to do a little bit of this here, right? So for example, today there was yet another record-breaking surge of 161 new cases. Remember, it wasn't that long ago.
These are not positive tests. These are actual cases documented in Cambridge.
These are positive tests.
Oh, wait, positive tests.
Now, a positive test might mean you could be asymptomatic, but you got a positive test.
It means that there's some kind of infection, maybe.
Right. So they also keep track of the what they call known active cases. Currently, that stands at there was an increase of 136 of those today, and that stands at 1343 right now. And they also keep track of the recoveries, people who are past it, even if they
But when
were
you
an
say
active
they,
case.
who's keeping track of all this? Who is
This
it?
is
The
actually,
state?
yeah, it's
From-
actually the state database, the city,
But
everybody,
okay.
all communities are supposed to report to the state their information. And, you know,
But it's
and then
based on the testing.
it's based on the testing, yes.
And
Actually,
well,
it's not based exclusively on the testing. When you look at the numbers that are reported, it includes probable, you know, cases that are presumed to be positives, even if they weren't tested, like somebody, you know, obviously had the symptoms and, you know, so
but
yeah,
somebody
but
has to have been alerted
I
to
think
it.
it's a robust number, though. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, but again, like I have said,
telling.
and people have said, they do not ask where you're from when they test you in Cambridge.
Right, but these numbers are supposedly tracked to your community because somebody should be reporting that.
Well, I don't know how they can do that if maybe when you sign up, I don't know, maybe to get your results, you have to put where you live. I don't know. I don't know how that's done.
Right.
But obviously a lot of people, you know, are getting tested that don't necessarily live here.
Right.
They might work here, which actually allows them to get.
Well, there may be a category in the state database of, you know,
True.
you know, address not.
I'd like someone
specified.
to answer that for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
But in any case, in terms of the ones for whom are presumably Cambridge residents, it's just been skyrocketing. And
yeah, well, it's very contagious, this Omicron.
But the reason why the reason why I'm of mixed minds about this is that those numbers are skyrocketing, but the number of fatalities, and I don't have track of the number of people hospitalized, but the number of fatalities hasn't moved in many weeks.
Right. And it moved very slowly even. Over
so in terms of the real scary stuff, right, there's reason not to be petrified.
Well, you know what?
But
death is one thing. Long-term symptoms and long-haul COVID is another. And that's what scares me. Actually.
Yeah. So and I know that it is a certainty that Omicron has made it into Cambridge. They said
73% across the country is now it's Omicron.
Right. And New England, it's 37% Omicron. And they haven't done.
Why is it so low here if it's across the country? They're saying it's
beats me, but that's what I saw today.
Well, all right.
And you know, and that'll probably be rising.
That means it's going to come. Yeah, we're getting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know, so far it's you know, it's not the negative effects of it other than fear are so far.
Vaccinated and boosted really helps.
Yeah.
And being masked.
Right. And I'm a person who doesn't love getting jabs, but I was eager to get that booster yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you. But just in terms of just, you know, a little graphical sense, so you can see how I've had to normalize this graph. Now it used to be.
This is just from November. This is just the last month and a half.
A week or so ago. I mean, I had it peaked at about 8,000 something. I've had to rescale it up to 10,000.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
just to accommodate the rapid increase, you know.
But the real telling thing is the next graph. That's what's really scary.
Right. So this is over the entire course of the pandemic.
Look at this.
You see and these are 7-day averages. So that averages out any daily peaks. And what you can see here is the 7-day average itself jumped another 5 or 6 today.
I mean, we thought we were high back in, this was like almost a year ago, January 6th. It's funny you have the 6th.
Yeah.
That was very high.
In midsummer, we were down around the 7-day average was close to
outdoors versus indoors. That's a lot to do with it, you know.
Well, plus this new wrinkle,
the new variant, holidays, Thanksgiving, traveling, all of that.
And then from the onset of Delta, which is sort of around mid-year this year, you can see where the
a little
Delta,
later,
right, but later. Delta kind of rose and fell.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we thought, well, is it going to start waning now?
No,
whatever.
Really got
and then,
high about
and then something, a combination of Delta and Omicron seems to have really taken over. It's probably also worth mentioning the distribution by ages.
Yes.
This data is about a week old.
Wow.
But they don't, you know, I think they only update the age classifications maybe once a week. But what you can really see here is that
look at that.
The highest incident of cases.
So why do you think, is that college age? What do you think?
This is like 20 to 29 is, you know,
but
graduate
they're vaccinated.
Students.
They're getting vaccinated.
Right. So they're not dying.
But they're being careless.
Yeah. Maybe, but there's a lot, and hanging out, partying and
Hey,
such.
right, vaccinated and being a little, they're young.
Right,
I'm not going to
right.
die. I'm vaccinated. Yeah.
Right. So the percentage in Cambridge, at least, of the
Very low.
surges are like 80 some odd percent are in the earlier age brackets.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, it's good. It's peak. It's gone up a teeny little bit in some of the older age groups as well,
Not
but
mine.
but it's not.
I'm way down there. Well, I'm not 90. I'm not 80
yeah,
yet, but
you go.
I'm down there in the 70s.
But you can see here that it is not the incidence is not uniformly distributed by age by any means. So basically, those are the people who get together and party like like there's no tomorrow. Probably,
or they go home for the holiday, they come back. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with that too.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's no escaping it that this is sort of a big topic right now. And there was a COVID update as part of the city council meeting last night. The next scheduled one is for January 10th.
And introducing the new public health officer, Jared Neal. Neal's his name. And
I like the sound of his voice. He sounded like a preacher to me.
You know what what's interesting? He said that he said that coming here from Texas was I'll paraphrase, like a relief, because people are so against any kind of mandates down there. And I was thinking our last Claude went to Texas. He went to San Antonio. So anyway, but I think
I think what he said it was that getting cooperation between different
agencies of
governments and whatever, it was hard there. Exactly. And it felt like it was like begging, whereas in Cambridge it's a given.
That's right. That's right.
And having been jabbed by a guy named Danny from the Cambridge Fire Department yesterday, I'll say, we all work together here on this stuff, right?
So let's bring up the 3 late policy orders, which all related to this whole issue, right?
That's right. Yeah. So so as part of the meeting last night, and I think I can actually.
Oh, you have this in there?
I might. I've been doing updates to these. I don't have all the right language because
but I see it. Yeah.
It just wasn't available, but I put the late orders when at the end of the meeting.
Establish an indoor, right.
And the counselors were a little off base in some of their analysis of this, I would say. But
why? What do you mean?
But I understand there was uniformity. These are unanimous desires to establish an indoor mask mandate in common spaces of all buildings and indoor environments, or words to that effect. And then the other one was to request the city basically all of these are requests to the city manager.
Right.
That's
what all policy orders are.
Yes. Request the city manager to establish a vaccination mandate for all indoor venues. So that's pretty much following in line with Michelle Wu and City of Boston.
Right. That's going to be tricky.
But Arlington and Worcester and a lot of other places are actually already doing this now.
Somerville's doing it tomorrow.
Yeah. And then the other one was something which is really just relatively minor, but it was basically clarifying the city employees your options to work remotely rather than crowding into, because if you think about it, last year there were a large portion of the year city workers actually they were maybe half staff at most. On any given day, they would alternate work days so that they were.
So they've gone back to being there full time, or they're required to.
They were. I think not all offices, but some offices, and now I think we're saying if somebody could work from home, they're asking if they could go back and do that. Once again, I think that's kind of what seems to be in the offing.
Right.
Yeah.
Although Councilor Simmons thought it wasn't in the city council's purview, that it was more like they would like this to happen, but
but as you say,
doesn't hurt to ask.
It is true, the city councilors cannot lean on a department head and say, do this, do that. The city councilors most certainly can ask the city manager
to lean on the department head
to do that, if he would please do that.
Okay.
And if he doesn't, if he refuses, they could say you're out of here. By the way, that's something it was brought up. I think at the previous council meeting.
Yes, it was very short meeting. What was that? An hour and 10 minutes.
It was less than that. I believe it was less
short,
than 57 minutes, I think it lasted. That was very
Oh, what?
delightful, I
There were
think.
like 3 public comment days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but one of the items there, and sometimes I I'm not trying to like flatter myself here, but sometimes when I make some snarky comment,
Yeah.
I'll often see some action the following week where
Yeah.
some counselors, so I made some really
Oh,
snarky
about the
comment
awaiting
about,
orders? Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
understand.
about,
I didn't understand what that meant though. Maybe
yeah. Well,
explain it.
what I was going
Okay.
to first say though was that
Yeah.
I had made some snarky comment about, they're worrying about this and that, but meanwhile, we haven't heard a word or
Oh,
peep
about the
about the
city
city
manager. Right.
manager. So then
Right.
Denise Simmons comes in with an update saying, well, okay, here's where we
We've
stand.
hired the
You've
firm.
got a
Yeah.
consultant, I mean,
That's
I think there
true.
was a little bit of information left out there because I heard it, a little birdie told me that there was only one bidder for this to be
Oh.
the headhunter looking for city manager. I don't know if it's true.
Hmm.
Or maybe it was only true for a time and maybe other people bid on the
That's
on the
interesting. You would
contract.
think people are hungry for work, but maybe they don't want to touch this city.
It's a pretty
I
special,
don't
it's
know.
kind of a specialized thing, to go
True.
out looking for
Yeah.
recruiting and screening
Yeah.
city managers. It's not like,
Yeah, it's not like,
you
yeah.
don't go down to the local Walgreens and say, and take that off the shelf, right?
And it's not hiring like a CEO of a company. It's really
No,
different.
it's kind of
It's
specialized. So
municipal, but it's, yeah.
yeah, so sure, there are people who do this, but maybe there aren't so many. And
So that
and
was mentioned. So they probably got the hint
yeah,
from you. Yeah.
but I think there are a lot of people, myself included, who've been kind of starting to wonder a little bit. I said, this kind of matters. And meanwhile, the city clerk, basically is going to
He's
be
going to be
3
leaving too.
years, and he's
I
gone.
know. Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, the city of Cambridge jobs may pay well, but it's not always the best place to be.
Well, it's expensive to live here because you should probably live in the city, and the
Yeah.
politics of it can be very greedy.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
very. Yeah. I mean,
And,
I don't.
yeah.
I mean, I hear it from people
Yeah.
who've been in
Yeah.
these positions.
Yeah.
Just what a pain it can be.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not a desirable place. And if you can get 3 years at a good salary and then you put that in your retirement bank, then maybe you've sort of done well.
Yeah.
But so they'll have to start looking for another city clerk next soon.
Plus approve all those appointments to city commissions.
Right, and then you got to settle on a city manager.
That's a big one.
I absolutely hope that they can find somebody who's familiar with the city. But this is a very weird dynamic where there are some councilors who've already openly expressed a desire to hire only somebody who knows nothing about the city.
And it'll have to be BIPOC or person. It'll have. I mean, which
you have
I'm
to
all
check
for
all the
that.
box.
I would love to see a woman. I really would.
Yeah. No, so would I.
You
So would
know,
I. I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if they constrain themselves so
I know.
so much,
No one's
in
gonna
the
wanna
end,
be here.
they'll find themselves
Yeah.
at the end of Louis' term, and they still may be
Well,
unsettled on the question.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, we'll see. And there is a it's Louis, it's you kind of have to take the long view to some degree. So
Mhm.
it's Bob Healy. Well, actually, it's even you can even go back before Bob Healy, but certainly Bob
remember that,
Healy,
yeah.
Richie Rossi, Louis DePasquale
Yeah.
are, there is a succession of people
Mhm.
who have kind of
Come
worked
from
their
the
way up
city.
from through
Right.
the minors into the major leagues,
Right. They were
And-
in-house candidates.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And there is a kind of a stability that comes with that, whether you
Yep.
whether people like that or not. And I
Right.
know some people may not like that, right?
Right.
Because they want to
Right.
revolutionize everything, right?
Right. But
But
you got to understand this system, and it's not that easy to understand.
yeah, I think there's a good probability, if they are so insistent on getting somebody who is quite alien to the current city government, that person may very well not last more than a few years. So
Right.
we may be in for a few years of relative instability in city
Yeah,
government.
well,
And some elected officials may like that because they may see that, oh, great, we have a weak manager
so
and
let's
a
go
high
to a mayor.
turnover.
Yeah, maybe
Let's
we can
just
change the charter. Yeah.
we'll just push our
Yeah.
agendas through and whatever.
All right.
And
All right.
and I don't know that that'll be good for any of
Okay,
us.
but in the last couple minutes, can you talk about that waiting report
Yeah. So one of the things it's sort of standard practice of any legislative body is that when the legislative term ends, a lot of the items that have not been settled, certain things like ordinances remain in process.
And
okay, like if there's a zoning petition that doesn't die at the end of the session. Okay, but there are other initiatives, and requests to the city manager, whatever, which unless you roll them over deliberately will simply expire at the end of the session. Heather Hoffman spoke against that at public comment last night, and I absolutely respect her point of view.
Or 2 weeks ago, wasn't?
No, last night.
Was it last night? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm of the opposite opinion, which is, to me, is that when you just leave a lot of sort of dead wood around, which is not being acted on, and everybody's going, when are they going to do this? When are they going to do that? I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to operate. I would rather see them clean this, or relatively clean the slate.
All right, but isn't that up to the city manager? Because it's most of those are referred to them. To that,
right. Well, I mean, my feeling about
he should be coming. Well, you've said that.
I absolutely agree with that. To me, if the city council votes 5-4, basically to paint all the telephone poles pink, and you want to come back and say, well, I'm sorry, councilors, I ain't doing it. It's silly. Goodbye. He should just do that.
Say it. Just do
it. If that infuriates the elected officials, then let that happen. I would rather that than let things just be gathered cobwebs sitting there waiting in inaction. If an idea was just not a very bright idea.
Okay, we just have less than half a minute. So can we wrap up what that says, or should we continue that?
Yeah,
her order was a little confusing to me.
Yeah, well, basically, it just says that unless all it takes is one counselor to say, roll it over to the next session.
Oh, okay, so vote on it then.
Right. I would hope they do not roll over everything just because
I know. 5 years old, some of them.
Yeah, just
okay.
Give it a fresh life in a few.
See each other in the next segment.
All righty. See you then.